In Tunisia, funeral day, prayer day, strike day, protest day. It could be the breaking point for the birthplace of the Arab Spring. You're watching Arise News Hour, and that is our lead story. They came to bury Chokri Belaid. Nobody knows what happens next. We have reports from the country and analysis on its future.
Also ahead in the program, the first suicide bomber in Mali. He blows himself up attacking a group of soldiers in the town of Gao. Plus, 9 women are shot dead in Nigeria for giving polio vaccinations. Some Muslim leaders have said they cause infertility. And Burkina Faso in with a better chance against Nigeria. Slightly. We'll have a preview.
In Tunisia, there's fear in the air tonight after the funeral of Chokri Belaid. He's the non-religious opposition leader who was gunned down earlier this week. Mourners chanted slogans accusing the government of killing him. There have been burning cars, there's been tear gas, and clashes reported in several cities. Most shops are closed and the buses are not running in a general strike.
Now, the Prime Minister has tried to ease the tension by calling for a national unity government. His governing moderate Islamic Party refused. The country's political future and its government could be defined by the events of the next few hours and days. Draped in a red and white Tunisian flag, the body of Chokri Belaid was carried through the streets of Tunis. Tens of thousands of mourners chanted anti-Islamist slogans as the coffin passed by. The assassination of the secular opposition leader has plunged Tunisia deeper into political crisis. No one has yet claimed responsibility for Belaid's murder. He was shot dead on Wednesday at close range on his way to work. His assassin fled on the back of a motorcycle. His death brought thousands out of their homes. But on the other side of the city, the streets are empty. The General Union of Tunisian Workers called the strike to coincide with the funeral of Chokri Belaid. The call from Tunisia's most powerful trade union comes after the murder triggered demonstrations in both the capital Tunis and in the central mining region of Gafsa.
We are open and we are working. We are against the strike. We want to eat and to live. We don't care about politics or about who died or anything else.
I am not on strike. I am here and I want to work. The strike is not for our sake and it doesn't help us. The ones who want this strike are the ones who killed Chokri Belaid.
Tunisia's Prime Minister Hamdi Jabali had tried to defuse the tension by announcing he would form a new government led by his moderate Islamist party. But that was rejected by the ruling party, Ennahda. Chokri Belaid's funeral was marred by minor clashes. Police fired tear gas to quell the unrest. His death is the first political assassination in Tunisia since the Arab Spring 2 years ago. It remains to be seen if his death will derail the country's revolution.
And we are joined on the phone by Antoine Lambruschini with Agence France Presse. He is in Tunis today. Antoine, we've seen all these pictures of unrest during the day. What's the mood like on the street now?
Well, after a very emotional and political farewell where tens of thousands of Tunis residents took part, the situation is actually pretty calm tonight, eerily calm even because of the national strike. All the shops are closed, no cafes are working. So the main Bourguiba Avenue has completely emptied out except for the policemen and the military that have been deployed to fence off any possible clashes. So far, so good. The Ministry of the Interior said that, generally speaking, the day went well, and they're positive that it will stay that way.
Antoine, we heard reports that the police used tear gas on some members of the crowd. Can you tell me what precipitated that and who the tear gas was targeted toward?
Well, there were a few separate events. One around the cemetery where gangs of criminals, the ministry said, set fire to cars, robbed mourners, and threw stones at the policemen. So the police retaliated with tear gas to push those gangs away from the mourners and let the thousands that were there pay their last respects to the slain opposition leader. Then in the city center, a group of about 100 young demonstrators tried to walk down the main avenue, the Avenue Bourguiba, and straight away the cops on motorcycle, on foot, chased them away through the city center, firing tear gas. And in the provinces, and mainly in Gassas, the mining region, and a couple of cities on the shore, there have been clashes because demonstrators set fire to the offices of the ruling party, attacked some police stations. But all in all, it was less violent than what happened yesterday and the day before when a policeman was killed and another one is still lying in a coma.
And that's Antoine Lamborghini live on the phone from Tunis. Antoine, thank you very much. Jeff?
Thanks, Debbie. Dr. Geeta Subramaniam is an expert in international politics and via Skype joins us live from Tunis. Doctor, you are basically trapped in your own home right now, aren't you? You've been holed up in your home for what, the last day or so, couple of days?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say I'm trapped in my home, but I would say that there's not much to go outside to. Everything's shut down, more or less. I mean, I did find one shop to go to get bottled water and a bit of bread, but generally everything shut down. And I live in the suburbs, just out, on the outskirts of Tunis. While it should be expected to be very peaceful here, there is definitely a police and military presence even out here.
Definitely, Doctor. Who would have thought that 2 years after, I guess, the Arab Spring began right there in Tunis, things could have fallen apart in such a short time?
I think most people here expected it because, firstly, the main issues, the economic problems like high unemployment, have actually gotten worse than they did before the Arab Spring. Poverty and inequality is still rife. So I think people here felt that they hoped that the new government would address these issues. And they feel that the new government not only hasn't addressed those issues, but has also been very soft on the Salafist violent groups that have, attacked different people and groups, and that's the big problem here.
Doctor, do you think this is the end of this government right now as we see it? Is this the beginning of the end?
I think people would like that to be the case. The question is, what will replace this government? What will be the process in the interim before elections can be called? I think most people believe that there will be elections, but they also feel that the political assassination, as it's viewed, is not very good news for holding free and fair elections and the idea that power could be handed over in a nice, peaceful manner.
Doctor, stay safe. Thanks so much for your time. Dr. Geeta Subramaniam, an expert in international politics, joining us there on Skype. Debbie.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Munira Shaib is a Tunisian journalist, and she's living in London and joins us right here in the studio. Thank you, Munira, for being with us.
You're welcome.
I guess the question right now is, can a government recover from a political assassination?
Let me just say, first of all, that it is a very sad day for all Tunisians today, but it's also a very significant day. It carries a lot of optimism for Tunisians because Shukri Belaid has proved to be a unifying figure for all Tunisians. I think whoever killed Shukri Belaid made a grave mistake because they did not realize what this will mean for the whole country in the next few years or the next few days even.
Can I jump in and just ask very quickly, is it unusual that there is no suspect or no group has taken responsibility in this case?
Tunisians' history has never seen anything like this. I have lived most of my life in Tunisia. My parents have never seen anything like this. My grandparents have never seen anything like this. From independence in 1956, we never had political assassinations so grave and so clear and so in broad daylight. So this is a first for Tunisians and for Tunisia. For people not to say whoever killed the Shukri Belaid, it's not like I said. It's a first. It's a precedent. It has never happened before.
Munira, let me ask you this. You just mentioned it's the first time it's happened. So Tunisia is now venturing into uncharted waters. These are, I guess, very uncertain times, and it could get very ugly. It
can, but it can also take the country forward, because Shukri Belaid has gone down the history of Tunisia as a hero, as a national hero. Where he has been buried today is with people who fought the French colonialism and got France out of Tunisia. So he has gone down the history as a national figure. I am an optimistic person by nature, so I could see that the country will go forward from this. I can see that Tunisians will only learn from this. So there is no going back. The only thing that the gap between the government and the people has widened today, has widened big time, because the government thought that they can run Tunisians, they can do whatever they like. It's a government that has lost credibility big time today.
You know, I'm so struck by, I see the weight of how sad this is for you as a Tunisian, but also you just expressed hope. Is that the sentiment generally of the people in the country? It's such a sad time, but yet something good could come of this?
I'm afraid so, because many of my members of my family, my friends, journalists, I've been following since Wednesday what has been going on. In fact, not just Wednesday, since the first day of the revolt started in December 2010, I've been following very closely what has been happening in Tunisia. Yes, there have been times when people nearly lost hope, but because of who Shukri Belaid was, he was a very happy, optimistic. He was a man of the people. He refused personal security. He received so many death threats, but he just said, if they kill me, they cannot kill these millions of Tunisians, okay? So because of who Shukri Belaid was, a lot of Tunisians are saying today that this is a very, very significant date that will go down history, and Tunisians can only, even if tens or even hundreds of people are killed in the next few days, if things escalate between the government and the people, it can only take Tunisia forward. Let's not forget that the Tunisia is the birthplace of the Arab Spring. And when the Arab Spring started, people were optimistic, were happy that at last it is the people on the street who got the dictators out of power. And now it is our turn to decide our future, not for people who come from outside to run us and tell us how to run our future.
Wow, what a strong sentiment. Munira Shaib, thank you so much for your time and for your perspective. We do appreciate it. And we move on to a suicide bomber who has blown himself up in northern Mali, near the town, or in the town of Gao, where Islamist rebels were driven from the town. The attacker approached a group of soldiers on a motorbike before detonating an explosive belt, injuring one of them. The attack comes as rival army factions have exchanged fire in the capital of Bamako.
This is all that remains of the motorcycle the suicide bomber rode in on. He aimed to cause maximum destruction. In the end, he only succeeded in taking his own life.
He comes from the desert and wants to kill everybody here. He's gone, but it's thanks to God that we're saved. Otherwise, we'd all be dead.
In the capital, Bamako, there was an outbreak of fighting among soldiers, which shows the war is far from won in Mali. The unrest threatens to undermine the French-led military operation to drive al-Qaeda-allied Islamist rebels from the north. The Malian army said French and Chadian soldiers had left Kidal and are currently patrolling in Aguelhok, 100 miles further north. There are now claims that the Islamist rebels they are fighting are funded by the French. A former US ambassador in the region said France had paid $17 million in ransom payments to the al-Qaeda-linked militants. The money was to free French hostages seized from a uranium mine in Niger in 2010.
Of course, France didn't walk over to the Salafas and say, here's your $17 million. The ransom, like all other ransoms paid, were paid indirectly, ended up in the hands of the Malian government, and then were turned over, at least part of it, to the Salafas.
The French military intervention in Mali has cost France nearly 70 million euros. That's an average daily expenditure of 2.7 million euros and far exceeds the 1.6 million euros a day for the country's military action in Libya. France says it wants a United Nations peacekeeping force to be in Mali by April and announced it would withdraw from the country in weeks. That's prompted concern in the capital Bamako that the Islamists could come back to the country after France's departure.
Moi, personnellement, si j'étais député, j'allais proposer à l'Assemblée générale qu'on donne une part.
If I was a member of the parliament, I would suggest offering to the French army a military base in the north so they can control this huge territory which we don't have the means to make safe. This would put the northern populations at ease, and this way we might put an end to rebellions and issues with the Islamists.
The war has left thousands homeless. The roads connecting the southern and northern regions of Mali are still closed as rebels continue to pose a threat in some areas, and it remains unknown when these refugees will be able to return home. Sarah Head, Arise News.
To the business news now, and Africa's mining industry is facing huge challenges. Our economics and business editor Michael Wilson has that story and plenty more. Michael.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, mining, an industry crucial to South Africa and indeed the whole of Africa's economic success, has had a chaotic and violent year. And all week in Cape Town, mining's major players have been debating the future of an industry that one senior CEO described as in crisis, a crisis which may make many investors shy away from Africa and invest their billions elsewhere. The next issue the industry needs to face is the upcoming wage negotiations. Labour relations are worryingly fragile. In September last year, 46 miners were killed during a 6-week wildcat strike at the Lonmin Marikana mine. But the workers managed to extract a 22% wage increase from the company, independently from South Africa's oldest and largest miners' union, the NUM. Adding to the employment crisis is the planned restructuring at Anglo American Platinum, Amplats, which plunged into an annual loss after 2 wildcat strikes. 14,000 jobs are under threat. The NUM has been holding talks to try to reassert its authority and also to gauge what pay increases its members will be demanding. This all taking place in an atmosphere of considerable distrust of the traditional unions. We spoke to the Secretary General of the National Union of Mine Workers, Frans Baleni.
2013 wage negotiations are going to be the toughest in my 33 years in the industry, given the developments of 2012. Confusion has been planted, expectations has been raised, and in some instances an element of mistrust. So when you bargain, you normally analyze your opponent, you analyze the company's financial situation, and you are able to measure to what extent can I push the envelope, right? So with some kind of madness, it becomes very difficult to operate in those parameters because spoilers can come and say, we demand 300%. Although knowing that they will never realize it, but it becomes sort of a populist agenda rather than being realistic. So that becomes much complex and tough.
We'll return to that issue in a second. Let's just do the stock markets, though. South African shares hit a new record high on hopes of an increasing Chinese recovery. Meanwhile, top earners in South Africa are bracing themselves for a possible tax increase if the finance minister does announce the increase alongside the 2013 budget later this month. It will mean the wealthy in South Africa will be paying higher taxes than the top earners in the United Kingdom. In Nigeria, shares are lower on the back of some profit taking. In Kenya, the markets finished the day higher, boosted by Centum Investment Company, Kenya's largest publicly traded investment group. That closed at an 8-month high. In commodities, Brent's rise is a creeping threat. Rising in 12 out of the last 15 trading sessions, it's now at the top of its range and getting more support from Iran's refusal to hold talks with the US over its nuclear program. I say creeping threat because higher oil prices are a tax on growth. The gold price is trading in fairly thin trade, really, ahead of the Chinese New Year. We talked about that yesterday, not much expected there. Platinum extended its losses, having rallied to its highest level since September 2011, but only marginal on the day. And precious metals are generally supported by the robust domestic demand reflected in that latest data from China. Currency markets ended the week relatively flat. South African rand rose slightly despite a rising unemployment picture. Back to Africa's mining wage crisis. We've heard what the union thinks. Our correspondent Sidi Bishop in Johannesburg has been speaking to the companies themselves.
The companies themselves are also very nervous about talks this year. They're saying what brings nervousness are the utterances of the government. They had been very clear with the government, especially the platinum miners, that it's been a tough year. The platinum price was not doing well. They were incurring losses, and the government knew about that. They had several meetings with the government. As soon as they took a stance saying, some of our mines are not operating very well, we need to shut down the mines, the government made a U-turn, threatening to review their mining license, even threatening to cancel some of their mining license. They say this is disempowering us because normally we have smooth talks with the unions. This year, even if we have a benchmark that we set for ourselves and propose to the unions will feel empowered to push further because they believe that the government is on their side. And should we not meet that, the government may intervene and protect the workers.
Sounds to me as if the whole industry is in crisis, really. If there are splinter groups going one side and the companies can't afford to pay and the markets are falling, it sounds a dreadful mess.
Yes, there's a consultant I actually spoke to who said there could also be two dimensions arising from the talks. One, the fact that 43 miners died in Marikana Lonmin mines last year could make both the unions and the mining companies very cautious of what to do, what they do this year, how they talk, how far they take their negotiations, and how they become rigid in their stance to avoid what happened in Marikana. On the other hand, the fact that Anglo-Plat is threatening to dismiss 1,400 miners and the government is supporting it, the mining unions could come back and say, you know what, we can push further. And by pushing further, we know you're scared because you do not want a repeat of Marikana. So, looking on both sides of the coin, nobody is going to win this year.
It's a story we will continue to cover with you, CD. Thank you very much indeed. That's about it from me just for the moment. Still to come, snakes and ladders to your personal fortune.
All right, Mike, thank you so much. 9 female polo nurses are dead tonight after 2 separate shootings at health centers in northern Nigeria. In the first attack in Kano, the polio workers were shot dead by gunmen who drove up on a motorcycle. 30 minutes later, gunmen targeted another clinic outside of the Kano city and killed another 7 healthcare workers. Today's deadly shootings in Nigeria are the latest of several attacks on polio workers around the world. Last month, a policeman guarding nurses in northwest Pakistan was killed by gunmen. And in December, 8 female health workers immunizing children in Karachi were gunned down. Pakistani police arrested 5 alleged Taliban members soon after and seized their stash of ammunition and homemade tennis ball grenades. Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Nigeria are the only countries where polio has not been wiped out. Immunization is the only way to avoid the disease, which strikes small children and paralyzes them irreversibly. Islamic campaigners say the polio vaccine is, quote, forbidden because they say it's an underhanded way of making Muslim children sterile.
Now, Lawrence Ani is the editor of the Saturday edition of This Day newspaper in Nigeria. He joins us now on the phone from Lagos. Lawrence, I got to ask you this question. Do we know who's responsible for this heinous crime?
No, at the moment we don't. At the moment we don't have any information in that regard. But there is, of course, there is suspicion that the Islamic sect, Boko Haram, is responsible for the attack. Although not official, there is just a strong sense that it is the group that is responsible for the attack.
Okay. Has there been any outrage, any reaction so far, Lawrence?
Of course, there have been because the state government, that the Kano state government, has before this incident carried out a series of enlightenment campaigns, to disabuse the minds of locals that there isn't any insidious, there isn't any sinister aspect to the immunization, the polio immunization, because there was a skepticism a few years ago after some sentiments were raised that the polio immunization vaccine, has some elements targeted at Muslim youth to make them sterile, to make them unable to bear children. That is. So the state government carried out a series of enlightenment campaign, and gladly, it was working until yesterday. That's on Thursday when on the local station, the local radio station, somebody went, a Muslim cleric who went on air to voice similar sentiments.
Yeah.
That statement preceded today's attack. That there's no link as I speak with you.
Okay, Lawrence, let me ask you this. There have been campaigns, polio campaigns going on for a while now. So one would ask themselves, why now with this incident?
Oh yeah, like I said, it's quite baffling actually. But like I told you a day earlier, there was someone who went on air, a guest of the radio station, to voice a very negative sentiment about the polio campaign. So I wouldn't exactly know why it has to be now, But a few weeks, barely 3 weeks ago, the Emir of Kano was attacked. Was in an apparent mission to kill him. He lost about 3 of his aides. So, but for this attack, it's hard to say what the motive really is, apart from the fact that I believe it's just to create that similar confusion to dissuade people from taking part in the polio exercise.
Lawrence, we'll have to leave it at that for now. Please keep us posted on any developments. That's Lawrence Ani, the editor of the Saturday edition of This Day newspaper. Moving further afield, in America, millions of people are facing a weekend of strong winds and heavy snowfall. Blizzard warnings are now in force across 7 states. Will Took has the story.
The northeast coast of the United States is braced for what forecasters are warning could be an historic blizzard. Winds of up to 65 miles an hour are expected to bring cold air down from Canada and across the Great Lakes. These are the scenes in Michigan where the snow is already falling. Here in Boston, where the snow is expected to reach depths of 2 feet, the panic buying has already begun. Meanwhile, air passengers are being warned of widespread disruption to their travel plans.
There'll be a significant amount of cancellations, and we suggest people that have been booked to fly Friday evening and Saturday throughout the day that they call their airline and check with their airline before they come to the airport.
The devastation wrought by Hurricane Sandy last autumn is still fresh in the minds of many. Although this weekend's storm isn't expected to be as bad, authorities aren't taking any chances. New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg has 250,000 tons of salt and fleets of snowplows at the ready. His advice to residents is to stock up, be prepared, and sit out the storm in the safety of their own homes. Will Took, Arise News.
Our Washington correspondent Colin Campbell joins us on the line from the U.S. Capitol. Colin, let's talk about this weather. Are you going to escape the worst of it in D.C.?
Yeah, D.C. isn't expected to be hit very hard. Definitely not like New England. We've had a little bit of rain, a little bit of light drizzle, not even snow really, but New England is really expected to get slammed. Cities are already virtually shut down up there. School cancellations, partial government shutdowns. Although it's not supposed to have the impact of Sandy, major power outages are still a big concern up there.
Well, let's move on to a quite disturbing incident that is going on right now. That's a manhunt by the Los Angeles Police Department looking for one of their own, a former policeman. Tell us about that.
Yeah, his name is Chris Dorner. He's 33 years old. He's a former Los Angeles police officer and a Navy reservist. And that's what police say makes this man so dangerous. He's accused of killing one police officer already and 2 other people. They say because of his military training, he does know how to shoot. He does know how to survive outdoors for long periods of time. He's gone on the run already. He's believed to be heavily armed with several guns. And what's more bizarre about this story is that Dorner left behind a 20-page manifesto on Facebook where he addressed various celebrities, criticizing some and praising others. It's believed that Dorner is taking revenge for being fired back in 2011 after he accused a fellow officer, a field training officer, for kicking a mentally challenged suspect. He says that she definitely did this. It was later proven after an investigation that Dorner may have perjured himself. He denies those allegations.
Wow. We hope that resolves soon. Also, there's news out of Iran, Colin. I understand that they have refused direct talks about nuclear energy, which is something that Obama had promised. That surely is embarrassing for him. And is it also a sign of trouble to come?
Yeah, this indicates further awkwardness between Iran and the United States, adding already to the tension between the 2 countries. The Obama administration has been of the belief that increased sanctions would force Iran into a better negotiating position. But Ayatollah Khamenei has refuted those claims. He says that he's not going to be forced into negotiations because this wouldn't be done in good faith. There hasn't been a reaction from the White House from Khamenei's comments, and there is no briefing today as the president puts together his State of the Union address, which he's expected to deliver early next week. So perhaps they're still formulating a response to Iran. Despite all of this, this might be a little bit of bluster coming from Khamenei, as Iran is expected to sit down with 6 other nations, including the United States, at the end of February to discuss their nuclear program.
All right, that's our Colin Campbell, our D.C. correspondent, live from Washington. Colin, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Thanks, Debbie. And you're watching The News Hour here on Arise. Thousands of mourners gathered to bury assassinated Tunisian opposition leader Chokri Belaid. The first suicide bomber in Mali blows himself up attacking a group of soldiers in the town of Gao. And 9 women are shot dead in Nigeria for giving polio vaccinations. Some Muslim leaders have said they cause infertility.
Also ahead on the program, the finals approach. Burkina Faso versus Nigeria. Comment and opinion coming up. But first, after a marathon session of day and night negotiations, European leaders have finally agreed on a budget for the next 6 years. And for the first time, they've agreed on sweeping cuts to reduce spending. One of the areas likely to be hit hardest is development aid, which could have a serious effect on humanitarian assistance to Africa. From Brussels, Sandra Gathman-Gonzalez reports.
A struggling currency and a continent largely in economic recession has pressured EU politicians to look out for national coffers. Despite pledges to support overseas humanitarian efforts, European leaders have made the deepest cuts to development aid. Campaign groups say Africa's poorest communities will be hardest hit.
The effects could be really devastating. If the ambition of the European Commission proposal was achieved, we know that it could, for example, connect an extra 51 million people to drinking water. That's pretty amazing, and we know that the European Commission can do that. If cuts go much deeper, then actually not only will all of that not happen, but we risk turning off the tap, literally, to projects that are already in place on the ground. And we think that's unacceptable for the poorest people to have to go through that because of an economic crisis over here.
And as Europe continues its security and humanitarian operations in Mali, a key concern is whether recent spending commitments to sub-Saharan Africa will stick.
The crisis in Mali reminds us of the importance of long-term development spending. Of course, we need humanitarian spending now, and we need absolutely urgent and critical support to bring the situation to a peaceful resolution. But what would really help in preventing such future crises would be long-term development spending that can give people in those countries their own economic income, stability and security, so that things don't break down.
The EU's top position as the biggest aid donor to Africa is likely to stay, largely because that allocation of funds enjoys wide public support here. A recent survey shows that around 85% of European citizens want that aid to continue despite the economic crisis. And so campaign groups are now looking to the European Parliament to defend what they say is an overwhelming public interest to safeguard aid to Africa. Sandra Gatman, Arise News in Brussels.
Ben Jackson works with non-government aid organizations and is chief executive of Bond, and he joins us live right here in the story. So let's get to the nuts and bolts. By how much is the budget being cut, and when will aid organizations likely to feel these cuts?
Well, it's about 11% cut from what was being proposed by the European Commission to the member states. I think what we're going to start seeing is that the escalation, the progress that we've been making, remarkable progress to actually overcome poverty and cut poverty in recent decades in Africa, when the trajectory had been the opposite before that is threatened now, and that there will be slowing of that, and particularly to reach the targets that the world set itself by 2015 of dramatic cuts. We worry that pace of progress will be put back.
Ben, let me just jump in there and ask you, the EU had been saying that they will cut the budget drastically. They will cut it at some point. So this shouldn't come as a surprise to you, should it?
Well, it could have been worse, it's true, but we know that the public in Europe support aid. And at this time when this looming commitment that the world made, and also that European countries themselves promised to reach just 0.7% of their national wealth, they've gone back on that promise by this step today. That will be a setback. And so, in that sense, it's a turn backwards from what they'd already promised.
In this time, though, in this economic time, what globally, organizations, countries, businesses are feeling the pinch of the economy. Isn't this appropriate, and isn't there a way just to work smarter with what is available?
Sure, and I think that's one of the interesting things about European aid. Its rankings as a really efficient, excellent aid donor has really gone up in recent years. So actually it's a place where we should be spending money rather than lots of individual programs. Coming together at this time makes sense. Sticking by the European commitment is very important. And also the other point is long term, of course, this is to our benefit in Europe as it is in Africa. As Africa develops and grows as it is now, that's all the more to trade with. It's a win-win situation. It's not just, of course, about reducing poverty and the humanitarian argument. It's also about the argument that it benefits us in the long term. Africa, our neighbour, is going to be our trading partner increasingly in the future, and so this is very short-sighted of Europe to kind of cut, because that will have impact in the long term.
And Ben, for the cynics who say that aid doesn't really help,
no, I think that's completely wrong. Just taking one thing that European aid has done in recent years, 50 million people in 50 countries across the world have been prevented from going into to extreme hunger by aid. Many kids educated, vaccinated. Overall, globally, poverty, the most extreme poverty, has been cut in half. And so it shows we can make progress, but we need to keep at it.
All right, Ben Jackson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Wish you the very best. Now, here's a look at the other stories in the news today. A bus crash in Zambia has left at least 53 people dead. It collided with an oncoming truck on a main road 60 miles north of the capital. Eyewitnesses say the bus swerved to avoid another vehicle. Survivors are being treated at a nearby hospital. South African President Jacob Zuma has condemned the gang rape and mutilation of a teenage girl. He said courts should impose, quote, the harshest sentences, end quote, possible for sexual offenses. The rape and murder of 17-year-old Anna Ibusen has shocked the country. And a hacker has targeted George Bush Sr.'s personal email account and posted his private correspondence online. One of the emails reveals the former president's staff had started planning his funeral back in December when he was hospitalized for bronchitis. An investigation into the breach is underway.
And it's the end of a busy week in business. Our economics and business editor Michael Wilson is here with more on what's been driving the markets. Michael?
Jeff, thanks. The euro's been hovering near two-week lows after the European Central Bank rekindled expectations that it would lower interest rates again. Sterling rose against the dollar and the euro on Friday and was poised to hold on to those gains. Sentiment towards the UK currency was also helped by expectations that the Bank of England, our central bank, is unlikely to resort to more monetary easing in the near term. Europe mainly enjoyed the best session of the week after China said its exports grew by 25%, imports by 28%. In the US, trade figures are out. The Dow flirts with that crucial 14,000 mark. For more on that, let's cross live to our correspondent, Chitra Norbat in New York. Chitra, hello there. Now, tell us what's happening in the economy with the latest figures.
Michael, the U.S. trade deficit shrunk in December to $38 billion, which is better than analysts expected. This suggests that the economy and fourth quarter GDP is much better than originally estimated. Exports grew, with industrial supplies and petroleum products leading the way, and China, the European Union, and Brazil continue to be very important trading partners for the U.S.
Now, some of the social networking sites have not actually done all that's promised financially yet, but we have good news of one, don't we, today?
Michael, are you a big LinkedIn user?
I am. I hate it, but I'm in it, yes.
Well, the business networking site LinkedIn, they reported fourth quarter net income which just blew analyst expectations. Sales increased over last year by about 81%. They earn their revenues through three primary ways, and one is through job-seeking tools, which is their biggest revenue stream. They also have ad revenues, and they have these premium accounts where users can pay a fee and they get access to more data. I spent some time recently with the VP of Product Development, and he said that LinkedIn has over 200 million users worldwide, with about 65% of those coming from the international markets. They have super high usage in Latin America, and Brazil will be a focus for them for 2013. The company, they actually want to double their offices globally this year.
Now, as the cold winds begin to blow again round your part of the world, you're going to need a cuddly toy, aren't you, when we have news of Elmo?
That's right. Hasbro, they had this big hit with Tickle Me Elmo. Now they're hoping that children, young and big alike, love their newest invention and creation, which is Big Hugs Elmo. With Big Hugs Elmo, if you hug him, he hugs you back. If you hug him a bit too long, he says, "You're squeezing me too tightly." And if you rock him like a baby, he sings a lullaby to you. So for those of us in New York this weekend who may be stuck indoors because of the snowstorm, if you have your Big Hugs Elmo, you'll be good to go.
Chitra Norbat, I hope you keep warm this weekend. Thanks very much indeed. Now, the Chinese Year of the Snake begins this Sunday, and apparently it's going to bring some market gains. According to the annual Feng Shui Index launched by a brokerage in Hong Kong, the serpent's energetic fire element will drive market sentiment up as optimism grows. It's all to do with the belief that the universe is made up of 5 elements: earth, water, fire, wood and metal. And according to the index, the water element will take over in the second half of the year, causing volatility on the stock market. Snake years are usually marked by major events. The Berlin Wall fell in the snake year. The September 11th attacks were also in snake year, as were Pearl Harbor and the start of the Great Depression in 1929. Now, you need to pay attention. I've done a bit of research here. Okay. So, the year of the rabbit, right? The rabbit tends, if you're a rabbit person, you are very, very rich in China. If you're a dragon in Thailand, you're part of 27% of the ultra-rich. It's a great thing to do. In India, if you're a rat, it's good there. Japan is horses. Warren Buffett, of course, was a horse. Now, a bit more research. Debbie,
yes.
You are a snake.
I thought we were friends.
You are refined,
Oh.
introspective,
Oh.
unflappable. Jeff, you're a horse. Born to lead.
No particular part.
Born to lead.
Born to lead.
In brackets it says, born to lead first to the bar. You're sharp, charming, intuitive, and in private you have a squeaky voice. Is that right? That's not true, is it? Oh, you know, these they know
Michael,
nothing to this.
what are you?
What year?
I looked this up as well. I'm an ox. Strong, reliable, and inspiring confidence in others. and I'm stubborn. None of that is true.
All right.
And
Yeah,
maybe
Michael.
full of bull.
I'll do the gags.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. You are O'Reilly. You are watching Arise News Hour. We're going to go on to our next story before I get myself in trouble. There is no question life is tough growing up in Mumbai's sprawling slums.
But a new generation of children is finding escape from the hardships of life, or rather daily life, through break dancing. AFP's Charlotte Turner reports.
At home, his family call him Pankaj, but to his friends, he's B-boy Sin. The 18-year-old student is passionate about American hip-hop and breakdance. He dances whenever he can, but it's not easy in his cramped house in Mumbai's most crowded slum. Several times a week, he heads into the city to find a better space.
I don't have much room to practice at home, and this is where my friends are too, and we can practice together.
His dance crew meets at the ruins of this old hilltop fort to show off their routines. They call themselves the Slum Gods. Unlike the famous movie Slumdog Millionaire, these break boys or b-boys want to show there's more to slum life than poverty and a desire to escape.
Before we started to teach them breaking, some of the boys used to drink, get into fights and steal. But now they're totally committed to breaking.
The crew boasts dozens of core members from shantytowns across Mumbai, New Delhi and Bangalore. For many, it's more than just a hobby, but a chance to compete for cash and glory in competitions and even Bollywood films.
The boys from the slums work very hard, and we can see how much they practice to improve. Some might say, oh, they're from the slums, but for us B-boys, it really doesn't matter at all.
India's slums are a long way from the ghettos of the Bronx, where breakdancing was born in the 1970s. But like their American counterparts, for these Indian youngsters, it's a cheap and funky form of exercise and fun, and a break away from the pressures of daily life.
Nice breakdancing there. Sports now. And it's only game 2 of rugby's Six Nations, but pundits are calling Sunday's clash between Ireland and England as a winner-takes-all encounter. The England team received a huge boost ahead of the game with the announcement that Manu Tuilagi will be in the match day 22. Centre Billy Twelvetrees made an impressive debut last week. He retains his spot at inside centre, with Tuilagi covering on the bench. Former road race world champion Mark Cavendish has won his 4th straight stage at the Tour of Qatar. Cavendish beat Yevgeny Hutranovic of Belarus and Dutch rider Barry Marcus in the finish line in Doha. Cavendish now holds a 25-second lead in the overall standings. Burkina Faso's star striker Jonathan Pitroipa, who picked up a red card in Wednesday's semi-final, is set to play in Sunday's Africa Cup of Nations final after all. Just hours ago, Burkina Faso won their appeal against the striker's sending off and are sure to be boosted by his return. So we started off with 16 teams, we saw 32 matches and witnessed 4 weeks of non-stop football drama from Africa's finest. But now, only 2 nations remain. It is the Super Eagles of Nigeria versus the Burkinabe of Burkina Faso in the finals of the Africa Cup of Nations 2013. Joining us in the studio, as always, our sports reporter Ife Fatou Nasseh. Ife, great news for Burkina Faso about their star striker Pitroipa.
Yes, exactly. Now, I don't know if you saw that game on Wednesday, but I watched that game. And when he went down, I thought, great, it's going to be a penalty for Burkina Faso. It's going to be an advantage. They're going to, have an advantage over Ghana. But when the referee brought out a second yellow card, which meant it was a red card, and Pitroipa had to go off the pitch, I was like, probably as shocked as anybody else that was watching that match, because it was clearly a penalty. But to be fair, the referee Jay Didi had an atrocious game. He just most of the decisions he made were completely wrong, and he ended up getting suspended from that match straight after the match because his decisions were so bad. But we had to wait today to find out that decision on Pitropa because the CAF, the Confederation of African Football, had to wait until Jay Didi sent a letter to say that particular decision I made was wrong. So that's why Burkina Faso fans had to wait till today to find out, but it's great news.
What does that do to the Burkina Faso team? Big boost? Are they going to go into this final saying, hey, maybe we can beat the Super Eagles?
Exactly that, because I didn't really give them a chance until this happened. So it's great news because he should be playing in the final. Pitropa is a great player. He's been solid for Burkina Faso, actually. He's been really good. I say, great news for for Burkina Faso fans, because not only are they in the final on Sunday, this is the first time they've actually won a match in a Africa Cup on foreign soil. So this is such a big deal, and it's a huge deal, and they're going to, this is going to be a big boost for them.
Is this going to be something that's worrisome for Nigeria, though?
Unfortunately, so no, because as I said, I had my money completely on Nigeria, but he's been really. Jonathan Pitropa has been really good for Burkina Faso, so this is something that Nigeria will be worried about, or they'll be taking note. They'll say they're not worried, but they'll take note.
I wonder if this will play in their psychology. Sorry about that. With both Burkina Faso and Nigeria to get this decision today going into the weekend.
It's going to be a boost for Burkina Faso, totally. But Nigeria, they've got good players. They're not going to let this worry them. So in the end, they will be facing this game as if he was going to be playing, or because they didn't know. They knew that Burkina Faso had put in an appeal on Wednesday because it was a clear situation. So I think Nigeria would have been expecting this to have happened, because it would have been more of a shock if Pitropa didn't actually play in Sunday's final.
Obviously, for those of us who don't know, those of us watching don't know, the final is in Johannesburg?
Johannesburg.
What time?
Johannesburg, Sunday evening, they are played in Soccer City. Now, people that remember the World Cup, that's that huge, beautiful stadium that looks like an egg's nest, doesn't it? Oh, it's just beautiful. So that's where the Nigerian fans and Burkina Faso fans will be heading to, because that's where it's going to be at. So,
have you ever been to a final before?
I have not. I've never been to a World Cup final. I've been to a World Cup game, but goodness, I do wish I was in Johannesburg. I wish Sunday evening, I'm going to be in London watching it, but I wish I was in
I can't imagine what the atmosphere is going to be like that.
Vuvuzelas is going to be mad.
You've had your money on Nigeria from day one, Ife. Give us a final score, your prediction, since you're so confident.
I have been writing some of my predictions. I'm going for 2-1 to Nigeria. And I think with Nigeria, they're two-time winners. As I said, Burkina Faso, the first time in the final. They've actually done quite well to win a series of games. First time in the final, but Nigeria, two-time winners, 1980 and 1994.
And you're seeing the Burkina Faso fans right there. If you know those pictures, they're very confident.
Which fans are crazier, if I may use that word, the Burkina Faso or the Nigerian?
Oh, well, we're all Africans, and if anyone's playing against any Africans, they know the noise, they will bring the noise. So the noise is going to be there.
Burkina Faso looks pretty pumped
They do.
right there.
Vuvuzelas are loud.
Exactly.
Do you own a Vuvuzela?
Not yet, but after Sunday evening, I'm going to come in on Monday. If Nigeria win 2-1, I'm going to bring my Vuvuzela in.
Overall, Ife, how have this Cup of Nations been overall compared to others?
Well, it started off quite lackluster, but now it's getting to the final. It's actually picked up, and actually the excitement is there. As I said, the Burkina Faso, we're actually surprised that they've actually made it to the final. But the game against Ghana, they actually did really, really well against Ghana. So it ended up 1-1, and as I said, there were some decisions that went against them. So it was quite. They should have had a clear win against Ghana, but they did really well. They did well to get there. So I don't know. It's picked up. It started lackluster, but it's picked up.
Audience-wise, let me ask her real quick. Audience-wise, you think much of Africa will be tuned in to this Cup final? I mean,
Jeff, I can't even believe you asked me that question.
It might be easier to ask who won't be watching as opposed to who will.
The whole world is going to be watching, because Africans, we're everywhere. So we are all going to be tuned in.
And I know you'll be back with the report on Monday. We'll have the coverage.
And my Vuvuzela, hopefully.
And your Vuvuzela, I'm going to hold you to that.
Ife.
All right, Ife. Thank you so much. Can't wait to see. Well, a South African thrill seeker is facing prosecution after skateboarding down a main road in Cape Town and setting off a speed camera. Now, if you get a little queasy watching daredevils do what they do best, then you might want to look away or look through your fingers. Lon Santos has the report.
Have you ever wondered if it was even possible to set off a speed camera without driving a car? Well, so has this South African skateboarder, but he's about to put his theory into practice. man believed to be Decio Lourenco sets off down a busy main road in Cape Town. This YouTube video has already been viewed over 200,000 times, and it's no wonder why. Picking up pace and coming dangerously close to oncoming traffic, Lourenco notches up a speed of 60 kilometers per hour. That's almost 40 miles an hour. How do we know this? Well, the youngster apparently recorded his speed with a GPS device attached to his ankle. And if you don't believe him, just wait until you see what happens next. If you missed that, have a look again on the left. He's travelling so fast he manages to set off the speed camera. A delighted Lourenco celebrates. But his celebrations probably won't last very long. The South African police have decided to charge him with reckless and negligent road behaviour. He's now wanted for arrest. That's if the police can catch him. Lance Santos, Arise News.
Now, the 2012 Grammy Awards kick off this weekend in Los Angeles.
And this year, the host broadcaster has sent an email to guests begging them to keep all their naughty bits under wraps. Arise News' Heather Scott reports.
Grammy performers have been told to cover up at Sunday's big awards show. In what is called a wardrobe advisory, the American broadcaster also asked musicians and audience members likely to appear on camera to avoid wearing brand names on T-shirts, as well as clothing with political or activist slogans. Buttocks, female breasts, bare flesh under the curves of the buttocks, and the buttock crack are all mentioned as wardrobe no-nos. The formal warning follows an 8-year court battle over indecency and obscenity standards on US network television that ended in the Supreme Court. CBS was fined $550,000 in 2004 for airing a glimpse of Janet Jackson's nipple when her costume slipped while singing at the Super Bowl. CBS has expressed deep regret for the so-called wardrobe malfunction. In 2010, the singer Pink performed upside down in a flesh-coloured bodysuit, while Rihanna last year wore a plunging black dress on the red carpet. Other infamous Grammy looks included Jennifer Lopez's cut-to-the-waist green Versace dress in 2000, Toni Braxton's barely covering cream dress in 2001, and Fergie's see-through orange lace number last year. Performers on Sunday's 3-hour show in Los Angeles will include Rihanna, Justin Timberlake, Maroon 5, Frank Ocean, Alicia Keys, and Elton John. Heather Scott, Arise News.
I have never seen you watch any tape with such intense attention.
I was watching Michael watching the tape. Michael, your
There was
thoughts?
this bloke in 1965 called P.J. Proby. He was American. Had a voice as deep as yours, very nearly. He went on stage in a place you never want to go to, which is south of London, and he split his trousers. It made headlines in the papers, right? And there was great national debate about it. I'm sure the Archbishop of Canterbury got involved in it, quite honestly. He was playing just north of London the following night, so he split his trousers again. The UK authorities withdrew his work permit, and he went to become a fallen idol forevermore. So when you're on stage, keep a tie held on your trousers, Jeff. The rest of it's tame, isn't it? After that.
But those pictures
And
from
that's the message.
those pictures, my goodness.
You know what? I don't know Janet Jackson at all, but I have to imagine that she is so tired of being the poster child for wardrobe malfunction. Will she ever live that down? Especially since so many other celebrities, like Jennifer Lopez and some of those other pictures, they did it on purpose. They, and poor Janet just goes down in history.
I'm so pleased we're all staying buttoned up, aren't you?
Michael, are you buttoned up?
Certainly am. Ish.
I don't want to frighten people. There's quite frankly nothing that anybody wants.
That's because you're an ox, Michael.
Snake, horse, ox. They're supposed to be quite good friends as well, it said in my personal Chinese philosopher was telling me this afternoon as I was researching that item. It's all very good news, you know.
I like the horsey business.
Yeah, it fits.
Oh, yeah.
No, it does. A leader.
Down to a T.
Absolutely. All right, well, it's almost time to go, but we're going to leave you with some more pictures of that skateboarder who got a speeding ticket on his skateboard. Just a warning, don't try this at home.
See you Monday. Good night.